What's going on, Tarantino fans, and welcome back to episode 6 of the Once Upon a Time with Tarantino series. Guys, thank you so much for watching this series. Thank you for commenting down below your thoughts on each Tarantino film and answering all the questions. It's very much appreciated. And guys, we are getting into Tarantino's classics. And this may be one of his underrated movies for sure. I really like this movie a lot, and that is 2007's Death Proof, which stars Kurt Russell, Rosario Dawson, and a really great cast around. And guys, I'm super excited about my special guest talking about Death Proof with me. He is from Australia. He has a really great YouTube channel that I'm a huge fan of, and you should definitely know this man as well. That is Steve from Rewind Replay. Steve, welcome to the channel for the first time, man. How you doing?
Ryan, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for having me on your channel, man. This has been a long time coming, something I've wanted to do for ages. I'm glad we're finally able to get together to talk Death Proof. This is one of those severely underrated movies in Tarantino's lineup.
I agree, man. I'm super excited to be talking about Death Proof with you, Steve. And guys, before we talk about Death Proof, we're going to be reviewing the movie as well as doing in-depth discussion on the film. So feel free to chime in down below your answers to these questions and what do you think about Death Proof. Do you love it, think it's okay, or do you absolutely hate it? Guys, let's have a fun discussion and talk some more Tarantino. So, Death Proof was part of Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez's Grindhouse film series, and Quentin Tarantino directed Death Proof. So, Steve, let's talk about Death Proof. So, let's get right to the first question. Steve, I asked this with every single guest on here. When did you first get introduced with Tarantino? What was the first film you saw of his?
I remember going and watching Kill Bill in the cinemas with some older friends I had of mine back in the day. But I don't think I was quite old enough to really understand what was going on. I certainly didn't understand what Tarantino was out to do with each of his movies, how he tries to harken back or pay homage to films of old, but do them in a new way. And it just sort of skated over my head. But when I started this YouTube channel, I had a mate with me early on, Corey, who suggested I go back and watch a lot of the older Tarantino stuff. So I did, and I found a much greater and deeper appreciation for all of his films, knowing what he was trying to do with them. And Death Proof was actually the one I had to watch again. The first time I watched it, I didn't know what was going on, didn't know what to get from it. But in rewatching it again for this video, man, I actually found an awful lot to enjoy about it. There is a lot underrated about this film, and I'm really keen to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm in that same ballpark. I started watching Pulp Fiction, then I saw Inglourious Basterds, then I saw Django, and I just saw all of his films that everyone's been talking about. And then I watched Death Proof just to see what it was. And I think people are sleeping on Death Proof. I think it's a good movie, and it's out of Tarantino's films, it's definitely one of his weaker films, but that is not a bad thing at all because Tarantino's gold, man. But I think this movie's criminally underrated. Just the concept, everything behind it, the Tarantino-isms. Just this movie's full of everything that you love about Tarantino. And there's so many great things to get into this conversation. And let's go right to the second question. What are your thoughts on Death Proof overall, Steve?
Initially, I didn't know quite what to take away from Death Proof. It was such an odd film when I first watched it. It just cut and chopped to different parts of the film, left and right. But then it was when I finally clicked on that it's meant to be an exploitation film, or at least pay homage to the exploitation cinema back in like the 30s, 40s, where old reels had come through and they'd have dud bits of recording, so they'd just cut them out, chop it back together and throw it back on the reel. They'd go from cinema to cinema. And that's what it's meant to feel like, and it does. And I even love how it's got some scratchy footage throughout, which I thought was great. It's also a sleeper slasher film as well. Like, Stuntman Mike is a slasher villain, and his car's his weapon of choice, much like Jason's machete or Freddy's glove. And I think that's just such a fun and unique take on a movie. Like, they made a slasher movie that pays homage to exploitation cinema and muscle car movies. It's just so cool.
I'm right there with you, Steve, because this film has all those Tarantino-isms, like you said, but it came out in 2007, right around the time Tarantino was done with the Kill Bill movies. And so Tarantino, taking a little bit of a break, decides to make this movie about Stuntman Mike, basically this insane guy who kills strippers, but definitely doesn't sound like a Tarantino idea for a film, but once you watch Death Proof, you could totally see Tarantino's styles with the swearing, with the action sequences, and with the performance dialogue-driven scenes. And I think audiences were turned off by the concept of this movie, but I think this is a film that years to come, I think people can rewatch this, which Steve and I recommend you rewatch Death Proof, because if you rewatch it, I think there's something you'll appreciate about a smaller budgeted film like this. This definitely transitions into the third question, Steve, all around. Is the unique ideas about this film. What was so unique about Death Proof, Steve?
The thing I think is so unique about Death Proof is just the way it goes ahead and approaches everything. Like, it's actually got a real slow burn to it. That opening half an hour takes a while to get going. Mike steps in and things start to ramp up. The tension starts to ramp up. The score ramps up. And then you've got his first few kills. And I think it's just interesting to see slasher films from the slasher, the killer's perspective. That's not often the case. We generally follow the final girls or the pack of characters throughout that are getting killed off one by one, but Mike's our lead character for a vast majority of this movie. And I think that's a really unique take for this type of film.
It definitely reminded me of Halloween mixed with Steven Spielberg's first film, Duel. I don't know if you've seen Duel, Steve. Oh, yes, that whole trucker dude that you can't even see the trucker at all. He's driving behind that person. It totally reminds me of that movie so much. I love the car sequences in this film, and I think Kurt Russell gives a magnificent performance in this film. Stuntman Mike, you automatically see him in the bar talking to some strippers, and you just see he's just eating nachos, and you seem like, all right, he seems like a normal guy at first, but then he just takes that stripper out on a ride, and he kills her. So that's the type of movie we're getting into right there. So definitely really cool concept. All right. Steve, except for Stuntman Mike, interesting question. Who's your favorite character in this film?
Well, outside Mike, I'd say someone like Jungle Julia was really cool. I really liked her character. I actually think there's a lot more depth to her than what appears at surface value. She seems like this really confident and outgoing character. She's famous after all, but I like the fact that she wanted more. She was texting a partner that wasn't there. You could tell she wanted to, she wanted to grow in a relationship with someone and wanted more depth from her relationships, but it just wasn't there. It was all very surface value. So I really liked her. And Zoe Bell I thought was fantastic throughout the entirety of the movie. Just the fact that she's a stunt actress. She was Uma Thurman's stunt actress in Kill Bill, and also did Hella, Cate Blanchett's stunt work for Thor Ragnarok. And the fact that she was a leading character, had an awful lot of dialogue throughout the entirety of the film. They let her keep a New Zealand accent. Thought all of that was really cool. She was a fun character to watch on screen and had some of the best dialogue as well.
I think Kim was my favorite character. I think she was great in the last half of this film. We'll talk about the last half for sure, but I think her and Zoe Bell had some great back and forths with each other. Just to see these different groups of people that are dealing with Stuntman Mike, it was cool to see their interactions and doing all these things and really seeing how much they're struggling throughout the film. I would go with Kim because I think her lines were the funniest by far. Now, the question I've been waiting for is our favorite scene in this movie. Steve, I'm going to take it over to you. What's your favorite scene?
Well, our favourite scenes, I think it's very easy to jump to the first set of kills. In particular, the 4-take kill you've got there as well, where Mike crashes headlong into the car with the 4 girls, and it does the 4 different takes showing all their brutal deaths. Where you've got legs flying everywhere, you've got the wheel that just skates over the chick's face. Thought all of that was awesome, but my actual favourite scene would come later on in the movie, and it starts in black and white in the second half of the film, and you can tell this is Mike's perspective on it all. And then it cuts to colour when Rosario Dawson's leaning on the back of the car putting on her boots. And originally I didn't quite get what this was doing, but in looking back and rewatching the movie, I actually think this is meant to represent, the black and white's meant to be Mike's part of the movie, and then this cuts to the girls in colour, and I think that's meant to be a power shift. Mike was in control, and now these girls are in control, and we're going to be following them throughout the back end of this movie, and they've now become the protagonists throughout the whole of it. Not necessarily the good guys, but the ones that we are following as our direct leads I thought that was just an amazing scene.
So, Steve, I don't know if you saw on Twitter from Sean Chandler, he was watching Death Proof, and he said that scene you were literally talking about, he said this scene was shot right where I grew up. So, Sean Chandler said that scene with Kurt Russell and them at the convenience store was where he grew up. So, I thought that was really interesting tweet there from Sean Chandler. So, yeah, I think my favorite scene is everything in the final act. That car chase and how it was filmed and all that. And that whole ending with the girls punching Kurt Russell back and forth. And then kick stomping him. Yeah. And then it just says the end. That was just great. Great. I love all that. So, Steve, do you have a least favorite scene in here?
Not necessarily a least favorite scene. I actually think the whole movie is really well structured and a lot of the fat's been trimmed away, but the movie does take a while to get going. In fact, it's 27 minutes before Mike even says a word when he's sitting at the bar. And that first 27 minutes is just this big build-up of lots of superfluous chatter. And Tarantino is very good with dialogue. There's no denying that. But I just felt they could have done a bit more with it here. Yeah, I didn't get that same gripping dialogue that I get from other Tarantino movies. And I would have loved to have seen this trimmed down a bit, get Mike in the front and center a bit earlier, but once it hits the 27-minute mark, this movie doesn't really stop till the end of the film. So, take what you can get.
Yeah, that opening 5 minutes with them in the car could have been shortened out a little bit, getting right into the story elements. Other than that, it just goes right into the story. But yeah, definitely those opening 5 minutes were a little too long, I agree. So, Steve, this is a really tough question I've asked everybody. If you directed Death Proof, what would you do differently than what Tarantino did? What mistakes would you fix?
And redirect a movie that Tarantino's already directed, one of the best directors out there. That's hard. I'm not sure I'd go ahead and redirect anything in this movie. I think all the scenes do what they're meant to. If anything, I'd probably say I'd love to see a bit more of Mike's story. Understand him a bit more. Maybe show him off somewhere and killing someone else, or show him doing a bit more of the hunting. We sort of catch him midway through everything. He's already found his targets. He's already pursuing them. Maybe drop back and see what he was doing a bit beforehand and just get a deeper understanding of this relic of the past character. I think he's so intriguing, and it was cool to see Kurt Russell in a really awesome role. So it's just a shame that we don't get to really delve deep into his character,
Yeah, I agree. I would like to see Mike's perspective as well. Other than that, I really like the girl's perspective. I love the ending, but more Mike scenes of him just driving, doing something. He sees the girls. Maybe Tarantino could have showed perspectives like he's done in his other movies, like Jackie Brown. That would have been cool to see, but yeah. Out of that, I would have definitely done different perspectives all around. I agree. So, my last question to you is, where does Death Proof rank in your Tarantino ranking?
You know what? In rewatching it, the movie doesn't rank quite as low as I'd initially thought. It'd probably sit around that 6, 7 mark out of all his movies. I mean, if you count the Kill Bills as one film, he's got 9 currently, including Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So, yeah, it'd probably sit around 6 or 7. Originally, I would have put it as probably my last, alongside the movies like Hateful Eight, but it was cool seeing it again because I got such deeper appreciation for what was going on, and that has led to it moving slightly higher on the list than I ever would have anticipated. So, yeah, around 6 or 7, I reckon.
Yeah, for me, it's number 8. Out of all Tarantino's films, if you count Kill Bill as one movie, which is 8 all around. I'll have to rewatch The Hateful Eight because it's between that and Death Proof, but as of right now, it's my number 8, my least favorite Tarantino movie. Not a bad thing. Guys, that is Steve and I's discussion for Death Proof. So guys, have you seen Death Proof? If you haven't, definitely go check it out. And if you have, let us know your thoughts and opinions on the film, as well as your answers to all the questions Steve and I talked about in the comment section down below. Steve, thank you so much, man, for joining me in the Once Upon a Time with Tarantino series. This was our first collaboration, hopefully not our last. And Steve, before we wrap things up, tell my subscribers where they can find you on your social media.
No, thank you, Ryan. This has been a heap of fun. I'm so glad we got to chat Death Proof. But if you'd like to find me, you can always check me out. There's undoubtedly a link down below. But it's just rewind, replay in the description box at YouTube. Come over, talk movies, video games, and TV shows. I'd just love to have a great conversation with you guys. So hit me up there. I'm also at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Rewind Replay AU. So come join the conversation, guys.
Please go check out Steve's channel. His social media stuff is in the description below. He does movie reviews as well, just like me. You will not be disappointed. And guys, thank you so much for watching episode 6. And stay tuned for episode 7 because we're getting into one of Tarantino's best films next. That is Inglourious Bastards, and I'm going to be talking about that film with Jackson Fulcher. Look forward to that discussion next week. And guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you're new to the channel, be sure to click that subscribe button and that bell notification icon for more content. And once again, they're in the description below. And guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!